lakes again today. It was a last minute decision. I wasn't even going to come out, but I thought, oh, I'll just come out for an hour, but I've been out for 2 hours. There's not a lot about, like there hasn't been for the last couple of weeks. So what I've decided to do this week is just to run you through how I edit one of my photos. Now, I haven't done any talking. I've been here a couple of hours and I wasn't going to make a video because I didn't think I'd get anything, but I managed to get a few photos of a couple of young grebes. So what I'll do this week is I'll run you through how I'm going to edit them from beginning to end. So jump back on my computer and I'll show you what I do. So this is the photo that I'm going to edit. I kind of like it. It's a little bit different from a photo I've had of a grebe before. This is a juvenile grebe, great crested grebe. So I'm just going to crack on and show you how I edit this photo. Reset it all because I have had a little mess with it. So starting, what I normally do is I normally crop it roughly where I want it. And the look I'm kind of going for with this is just to kind of capture the bird on its own with the reflection and to smooth everything else out, and just see what that kind of turns out like. Now just before I go ahead and crop this, we're using the crop tool up here, I can see that the water kind of goes up a little bit. Now I just want it to be a little bit more level, even though the bird probably isn't as level as it was, but you'll see what I mean when I actually finish the edit. So I want it somewhere around there, I think. Click done. So once that's done, the first thing I'm looking at is I want to remove all of this this green down the side. As there's no other green in the photo, I'm just going to try bringing the greens completely down. It turns it to like a bit of a brown. So what I'm going to try for this bit is I'm going to use a mask, and I'm going to use a mask and I'm going to use a linear gradient, and I'm going to pull that across, and I'm just going to see by lowering the increasing the shadows, if I can get rid of a bit more of that green. Probably bring some of the contrast down. I'm not too bothered about it at the moment because I'm going to change that anyway in Photoshop. I just wanted to kind of get an idea of roughly where I'm going to head with that. I think what I'm going to do straight away is I'm going to jump straight into Photoshop for this and do a bit of the water removal and smoothing first. So I right click and then go to editing and then edit in Photoshop, and then what that does is automatically opens it straight up into Photoshop. So as soon as it's opened up in Photoshop, the first thing I want to do is create a new layer. So layer from background. So if I do that first, and then I'll repeat that again. So I'll duplicate that layer. So I've got 2 layers down the bottom. I will then go up to the object selection tool and then just draw a box around the main subject that I don't want to interfere with. So that's more or less covered everything that I want. So once I've done that, I'll right click on that and I'll layer via cut. And what that does is creates a new layer, and it just puts the bird in the one layer. So I can only, by using this layer, I'm only affecting the bird. This layer that it's cut it out of is just the background. So if I click on the background now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to try using the filter, the Gaussian blur filter. So if I go to filter at the top and to blur and Gaussian blur, I've increased that all the way up, and you can see it's blurred the water out, which is roughly where I want to go with that. So I'll click OK. And then what I'm going to do then is I'm going to get a clone tool brush, the clone stamp tool. I'm going to increase the size of the brush. I'm just going to, staying on this level here, I'm not using the, I'm not going to over paint on the bird. I'm just going to pick an area that's just plain and then just paint around the bird to get rid of any little bits that are kind of sticking out, something like that. And then being as this part of up here is still showing a bit of brown and I want all of the top to be blue, I'm just going to repeat that all the way across. So I've got kind of like the blue of the sky sorted now. What I'm going to do then is, using this tool here, staying on the same layer, I'm going to go to the bottom and I'm going to add a layer mask. Now, white reveals, black conceals, so everything is white, so everything is being shown. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the brush tool, just make the brush a bit smaller, and I'm going to paint back what I want to come back from the original. So if I paint over the top of that, increase the opacity and change the brush to black, when I paint back now, you'll get all them details come back. So it's basically adding to that layer what I've took away. And then while still on the same layer, I'm going to use the clone brush tool again, and I'm going to paint over the top of this. So click back on to the actual image and pick a spot down there that I want to paint, want the colour to be, and then I'll just paint that greeny blue back off. Somewhere or something like that. Just a little bit down the bottom there. Right, now this part of the water here, I don't want that green in, so I'm going to make the brush smaller and I'm just going to kind of paint over that green. But because it's part of the layer now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flatten the whole layers, so it's right click and then go to flatten image, and then what I'll do then is I'll duplicate that layer, and then I'm just going to paint over that blue, over the green. I just want to kind of blend the last bit of water into like the background. I just keep picking points where I want the colour to come from. In fact, I'll just use this last layer here, this last kind of curve of the water here. Something like that, and I just want this last little bit of this circle here. So I'm going to increase the brush again and then turn the opacity down and then just paint over the bit that I've kind of took away. Just kind of blend it in. So I've kind of got the water now where I want it. I've got like the last circle of the water, so it's like pushing through the water, and I'll just kind of fade this dark bit of blue into the lighter blue.
something like that. What I want to do then is I just want to kind of sharpen it up a bit because it's still a bit blurry around the face. So I'm going to go to the sharpen tool. I'll sharpen his eye. His beak already looks kind of sharp, and I'll just sharpen just some of the feathers round the front. It's turned some of the feathers round like the neck a slight blue colour, and I don't like that, so I'm going to get rid of that. So there's lots of different ways of doing it, but a quick way of just doing it is, again, just duplicate that layer and then draw a box around the kind of area you want to get rid of, that you want to include into the mask. So it's just the neck. Right click again, layer via cut. So now I've just kind of highlighted this part here itself on the neck. And then with this layer here, I'm going to go to filter and go up to the camera raw filter. And what that'll do is it will open up just that selected part because I've just selected that layer. Now as you can see, there's a bit of blue there that I don't like, so I'm just going to turn the blues down. Let's kind of got rid of that, and maybe add in the basic just a touch more towards the warm side, and then click OK. So I've kind of got the blue out of there. What I want to do then is I'm going to flatten the layer again. Sorry, flatten all of those again. And then what I'm going to try now is I'm going to duplicate that layer again. And I always have a mess with this just to see what it comes out with. So if I go to the top and go to image, I can click on any of these three: auto tone, auto contrast and auto colour. And sometimes it kind of changes it and makes it a bit nicer. So that's kind of made the blue a bit smoother, but made the blacks a lot darker, which I do kind of like, and I can lighten up the darks. So I think I'm going to stick with that kind of blue. So I'm just going to bring the opacity down on that just a little bit, something like that, so it's not too blue. And then I can see that it's kind of going a bit patchy up here, that it hasn't kind of blurred everything out completely flat, which is okay. But I think I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, shall I stick with it? Yeah, I'm going to stick with it now. I don't want it completely flat. I do want a little bit of texture in it, so I'll stay with the texture part of it. Once I've done that, I just want to then dodge and burn some of the colours. So if I use the dodge tool here, like the lollipop stick, and I can go up to the top and I can pick shadows, midtones or highlights, and I want to just make the eye pop a bit more. So that's in the mid-tones. So if I just click on that, it kind of adds a bit more colour to the eye, and I can just paint over some of the lighter colours, and it'll just add a little bit more to them. And I think that's kind of all I'm going to do in Photoshop. Maybe sharpen these feathers a little bit more. I think that's it. So what I'll do then is I'll save that. So just save, and then that opens that back up into Lightroom. So when I click back on Lightroom, you can see that's the image that I've just been working on. Now, like I said, I think the blacks are a bit too dark, so I'm just going to bring up the shadows a bit more, which will bring up some of that detail, and then just lower the highlights. Maybe lower the contrast a bit to make it a little bit softer. Try adding a little bit of texture, but not too much. Sorry, a bit of clarity, not too much. Or I can lower the texture, which will make it a bit softer as well. So I'm just going to lower the texture a little bit, bring up the clarity just a little bit, and I think that's about it. Now, another way I can see that all this is still patchy in the background, the more I'm kind of looking at it, the more I don't like it. So another way I can try and do it in Lightroom is by using the masking tool again and select subject. Again, it will only select the subject. and I can invert that and then bring down the texture and the shadows. Bring up the shadows, sorry. And then I'll just bring down the exposure because I took some of that away. It does smooth it out a little bit, but it's still not enough, so I'm going to go back into Photoshop and do that. But before I go back into Photoshop, kind of the last thing I'll do in this is I'm just going to make it a tiny little bit warmer by turning up the temp. I'm going to right click and then go to editing, and I'm going to edit in Topaz denoise. I took this on my A6400 and it's not very good for noise levels, and I was using the teleconverter and my big lens as well, so it's an ISO of 1250, which wasn't ideal. Now you've got 4 different settings: original, clear, low light and severe noise. Now it's not really bad, so I don't need severe noise, but I do like the low light setting. It doesn't make it as sharp as the clear one does. Now I know I can bring down the sharpness and everything in here. I kind of got it set roughly where I like it, so I'm just going to go to low light, maybe bring down the sharpness a little bit and click apply. That'll kind of work its magic on that and take away some of the noise, which makes the image a little bit softer. So that's about it, I think. So like I said, I'm not keen with this top blue bit. I think I don't like the patchiness, maybe. So I'm going to try and smooth that out a bit more. So I'll go back to I'll go back to the Photoshop one. I'm going to close that down and then open it back up in Photoshop. I only closed it down so I don't get confused with which one I've been using. So I'm going to basically do the same as what I did before. I'm going to duplicate the layer, make a object select tool round it, I'm going to right click that, layer via cut, and then on the background I'm just going to go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and just bring it up, it just blurs everything out a bit more. That's okay. And then again I'm going to bring in the mask the mask onto the background layer, just so I can bring back a little bit of the edges that have just been blurred out. Make sure I'm on black, and then just paint some of the kind of edges back in. Something like that, and then I think that's it. I'm pretty much done. So that's how I edit that photo. So once I've done that, I'm going to go to save, and I'll just show you the before and after. It'll open it back in Lightroom. So if I show you the original, that's after, and that was before. You can see the difference. That's how I've done that edit. I hope it's helped a little bit, if that's what you're kind of looking for or looking to do, but that's what I wanted to do with that photo. So back outside.
Well, I've just been up to where the kingfisher apparently is, and believe it or not, I actually saw it, but I didn't get a shot. I was just about to walk away and I had a quick look up the river one last time, and I seen him dart out of a bush and fly up the river. So I know he's there, but I didn't get a shot. As I said earlier, it's really quiet at the moment this time of year for birds, and I really want to get out and do some landscape photography, but I've spent that much money this month on my car, both my kids' birthdays, and I'm trying to save for my Thailand holiday in about 5 months, which I've got to get about 10 grand together for, which isn't going too well. So I didn't really have any kind of spare cash that I could whop another £80 in the tank for the car and go to the Peak District, hence why I came out here. Hence, I don't think I've ever used that word in my life. I'm walking back to the car now. I've had enough, there's nothing about, but if I take any more photos I'll leave them after this. If there's no more, thanks for watching. Until next time.